This week's Pantheon features Rhulk, the newest addition to the boss gauntlet. With new surge mods, altered mechanics, and an additional Rhulk clone dedicated to kicking you in the head, I wanted to cover my best loadouts and team comps to help you all get your platinum clears. The Rhulk Indomitable Pantheon challenge rewards one of the nicest emblems in the game, and the difficulty has definitely ramped up this week to justify the reward. Unlike last week's guide, this one will mostly be focused on the Rhulk encounter, with loadout suggestions for the previous week's bosses to accommodate for the rotating surge. I'm above, and if you enjoyed today's video, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Now, let's get into it. As a bit of a surprise, the weekly weapon surges are Arc and Stasis, granting a 25% damage bonus to weapons and abilities like Grand Overture, Cold Comfort, Hothead, Thunder Crash, and Gathering Storm. The return of the Stasis surge in back-to-back weeks is definitely unusual, likely being done to prevent the Behemoth bake on Riven at -20, but we'll have to dive into that more when the challenge rolls around next week. So for our team comps, our hunters can use Celestial Nighthawk, Gathering Storm, or Blade Barrage depending on the encounter, especially since you can only stack one Gathering Storm on a boss at a time. And shocker, Solar Supers are still extremely good this week. Our Titans finally get to embrace their inner missile with a 25% bonus to their Thunder Crash with Cuirass of the Falling Star, especially since most of these bosses are focused on burst damage. And I hate to say it, but our Warlocks are going to be locked on well for the majority of the encounters today, strictly for survivability. And as we dive into our loadouts, let's start with Golgoroth. This is one of the more laid-back platinum medals in terms of the speed bonus, so we have a lot of flexibility here. You can either go off surge and just use bait and switch grenade launchers like you have in previous weeks, or swap to something like Hothead, Crux Termination, Cold Comfort, Reed's Regret, or Storm Chaser to match the surge. It's also worth noting that Lucky Pants with either Warden's Law or Malfeasance is going to be a staple in every single encounter yet again. For Caretaker, the 2-floor kill is still completely doable at -15 and is almost necessary to secure the platinum medal here. We have just 8 minutes to kill the boss before we lose the speed bonus, and 3-floor kills are extremely hard pressed for time. I'll recommend Hothead, Crux Termination, and Cold Comfort yet again, with another great option being Grand Overture if you're comfortable using it. The Rocket Barrage absolutely cooks with the 25% surge this week and can easily help you secure a 2-floor kill. These exact same loadouts can also work for Explicator, but you'll want to have a few people dedicated to add clear with Sunshot, rocking both heavy ammo finders and scouts for your fire team after each damage phase. It's also important to carry weapons that can deal with the arc-shielded Colossus on each plate, with Indebted Kindness, Warden's Law, a recombination Mountaintop, Heritage, and Scatter Signal being some solid options. This is easily one of the most difficult encounters in Pantheon, as it requires both 2-phase damage and serious survivability for platinum rewards, so you'll need to plan accordingly. The Tormentor can definitely cause some problems, but we found that if you actually avoid breaking its shoulders and just blind it repeatedly, it becomes a non-issue and despawns at the start of DPS, which essentially makes him a non-factor. As we move on to Atraks, my recommended loadout may surprise some of you. Grand Overture does have the capability to 1-floor, but it can be somewhat inconsistent due to how long it takes to actually fire the volley. This means that some people can miss their damage, and it makes it difficult to pair this weapon with a damage super as well. You know the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Well, even though it's Arc Surge this week, Parasite still works incredibly well. We've been able to 1-floor consistency without any problems at all, and use Thunder Crash and Blade Barrage to supplement our damage. Oryx can still be 2-phased with Whisper, but if you want to free up your exotic slot, linears like Reed's Regret and Storm Chaser are fantastic alternatives. With that said, this is a very comfortable 2-phase, so I recommend sticking with what you know and letting Whisper cook. Just make sure that one person on your fire team tractors Oryx's claws for a free 30% debuff as we discussed in last week's video, and you should be good to go. And now it's time for the main attraction, Double Rhulk. Now, some of you may dream of getting stepped on, but if you're not paying attention in this encounter, it's definitely gonna be more pain than pleasure. But lucky for you, we have some crucial tips that make it so much easier. So let's start with the main changes to this encounter. While on the main platform where you trade buffs and dunk emanating forces, 2 different tormentors will spawn, one after the first set of dunks and another after the third set of dunks. While this may seem annoying at first, it actually lets you take your time on this encounter, as the points that are given when defeating these targets push you over the platinum threshold even if you 3-phase the boss. And since div is a must for this encounter, you can simply have your warlock run Cenotaph and generate heavy ammo for future damage phases. And dealing with the tormentors is surprisingly easy. Simply break the shoulders and then apply div and have your lucky pants hunters nuke it in literally seconds. But I wouldn't advise leaving them alive like we did for the planets encounter. If you're going to use a blinding GL, I'd recommend popping the shoulders first, then blinding it, and follow it up with div for an easy bake. Blinding them early can cause tormentors to cover their shoulders, which slows down the process of killing them significantly. The most significant change, however, is the fact that we now have 2 Rhulks roaming around the boss room. One is the actual Rhulk, which has the crit spots that need to be popped for mechanics and damage, and the other is a shade of Rhulk whose sole objective is to walk around the arena and kick you in the teeth. Luckily, we have a strat that neutralizes the second Rhulk entirely. If you sit on the stairs that head up to the boss room, you can essentially keep the clone permanently aggroed on you for the entirety of the fight. And while this is happening, you can have a second person bait the main Rhulk on the top side of the arena, keeping your team safe and the 2 clones separated at all times. For damage, rockets and GLs go extremely hard here, while Gathering Storm, Thunder Crash, and Nighthawk return as the go-to supers yet again. We'll be pairing this with Divinity to ensure your Lucky Pants and supers hit for full damage, and keeps an easy to hit debuff on an extremely mobile boss for the entire damage phase. Now, you can 2-phase this boss with the right setup, but if you're struggling for damage, I recommend playing it safe and going for a 3-phase. The last thing you want to do is pop all your supers and enter the brutal final stand with limited ammo and a lack of supers to secure the kill. So save some utility for final stand, and the shiny new Rhulk emblem will be yours in no time. If you found this guide useful, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated, and I'll be running Pantheon helps all week long over on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/above, so make sure to swing on by the stream and get some help. Anyways guys, that's it from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.